If anyone wishes to speak on the item agenda, please complete a public comment card and give it to the planning and zoning staff prior to the board discussion and before a public comment section is announced. In no event will anyone be allowed to submit a comment card to speak on any agenda item after the title of the item is read or considered. The total time allotted for each member in the public to comment on each item is 3 minutes. Let's go ahead and start with a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 2, let's go ahead and do a roll call.
Mr.
Here.
Ms. Burgess,
Here.
Ms. Shepherd. Here. Mr. Brown,
Present.
Ms. Joseph,
Here.
Ms. Shepherd. Here. Chair Wiley,
Present.
you have a quorum.
Acknowledgement of any board member absence notification.
Mr. Gallen did call on Monday that he will not be present. Also, we have received on Tuesday, March 24th, 2025, from Vice Chair Guyton that he turned in his resignation letter. He will no longer be a part of the Planning and Zoning Board. He has been elected for councilperson District 1.
Great. Acknowledgement of any board member vacant positions.
Vacant positions that we have today, Chair, we have District 2, District 4, and by Mr. Guyton turning in his resignation letter, his alternate is Ms. Joseph, and she will have voting rights for tonight.
On to number 3, additions or deletions to the agenda.
No, Mr. Chair.
Number 4, disclosure by board members. Any disclosures? And adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It has been properly motioned and second. Are we ready for the vote, Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Burgess,
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez,
Yes.
Ms. Joseph,
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd,
Yes.
Chair Wiley,
Yes.
unanimous vote.
Number 5, on to approval minutes.
So moved.
Chair, there's no minutes for this meeting. Is that correct, Ms. Weathers?
Correct.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Okay, on to number 6, unfinished business.
Miss-
Yes.
Mr. Sherman, since Mr. Guyton is no longer here, when do we pick another vice chair? Is that in the working, or how does that work?
Ms. Shepherd, what would happen is the city council would need to appoint another member to the board. I'm not sure if we've issued a request for additional applications or not. I would refer to Mr. Sermons on that.
Mr. Chair, if I may clarify.
Yes.
So certainly, Mr. Evans is correct that you will need the city council to appoint a replacement to take Mr. Guyton's place on the Planning and Zoning Board. However, if the board wanted to select a new vice chair from amongst the current makeup, you could do that.
The chair?
Yes.
Just simply listening to you tonight, talk about the spring break, and you might not have been here, but you're so committed. I think it's only right that, we will appoint someone tonight. And I just think Sister Mr. Fernandez has done a fabulous job of filling in when you're not here. I think we should take it up under consideration. to elect Mr. Fernandez. That's just my opinion.
Is there any extra pay for the vice?
No.
Thought I'd ask.
The same bag of
Peanuts.
popcorn you get.
Popcorn.
Peanuts,
The
yeah,
the same bag of popcorn you get, that's all you get.
extra large peanuts.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd.
You're so welcome.
All right, is that something we would like to discuss now?
I believe you just need a nomination motion and then a vote.
Well, I'd like to nominate Mr. Fernandez to be vice chair. Nobody's saying nothing.
I can't vote.
Is there a second? I'm sorry.
I'll second. It has been properly moved in second. Are we ready for the vote, Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Burgess?
Yes.
Ms. Joseph?
Yes.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Chair Wiley?
Yes.
Unanimous vote. Our new vice chair is Mr. Frank Fernandez.
Congratulations, Mr. Fernandez. All right.
Your pay scale just went up. Nothing.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the vote of confidence, guys.
All right, so I think we're on to number 7 now, new business.
Mr. Chair, we have no new business, but the next item is a workshop item.
And number 8, workshop items, comprehensive plan workshop.
I'd like to introduce our principal planner, Ms. Sonid Simon.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, members of the board. Good evening, community members, and good evening, staff. This is our favorite time of the month where we get to go over our comp plan update draft language. And this evening, we'll be talking about our future land use element. This is an exciting element that we'll be looking at today. We're doing it a little bit different this time around. We have one of our consultants from our consulting team with CGA, Mr. David Dixon, who will be joining us this evening. He'll be leading this discussion. We'll kind of go back and forth. And like I always said, I want communication. I'd love to hear from you. And so we have a different way. We've done this once or twice before. But what we're going to ask everyone before we begin, do you want to do it now? Yeah, before we begin, if you can take out your phones, and text this number. So I'm going to wait for you to pull out your phones if you have not done this part already. And this also goes, community members?
Yes, yeah, and it is not anonymous. It has your numbers, so
It is not.
anybody can participate, so.
This goes for the community as well. You can take out your phones and dial 22333 as a text message. And in the message part, you put RB202. So everyone's able to participate. So you're going to put in the phone line 22333. And the message you'll be sending is RB202. And you'll be ready for when we get to that point where we ask for your opinion. Excellent.
Everybody's got that ready. It'll give you a little welcome message. So how it'll work is we're going to go through the land use element, but really we're going to look at 6 kind of big proposed changes where we've heard from yourselves leaders, stakeholders, the community. Like, here's the things that we want to go above and beyond and not be like every other comp plan out there. And these are specific things. We've identified these issues. So we're really going to focus on that. And then one other one at the very end that's related to a couple other different elements. And we're going to go through some of the future land use map changes, or one or two of the big things that I think will be important to get feedback on from you folks. So just a quick background on the purpose of the comprehensive plan. Obviously it's that community-wide vision for future development. It's big, it's broad. Think of it like a funnel with the comp plan at the top, goals, policies, objectives, and then land development code is the fine point at the bottom where everything gets really detailed. But this just sets you up for what the vision is in the future, and helps make that policy to guide you as a planning and zoning board to make recommendations on development projects, for your staff to make findings, to help you in the staff reports for projects, to make give you all the information that you need to make recommendations. Like as I mentioned, a lot of these comp plans are the same. That's because the state requires certain things, right? This is definitely not going to be one of those with input tonight on these 6-7 things. You'll really kind of start to see how it's really great for us, for me in particular, as a consultant, seeing this and doing this, is I think you really do have some things where you're making this very unique to this community. We've done extensive input, and this is kind of the outcomes. Almost there. We're not quite there yet. Got to wait for after tonight and get the input from y'all. We'll go over the next steps at the end of the day. So some of those areas of focus, economic development, which is not one of the required state statute requirements, right? That was one of the things that came up, is that we want to have a specific set of goals, policies, or at least work in economic development into every aspect of this, which is true. It's when you're thinking about land development, land use changes, we have to have some backing, some high level policy to help guide what you decide to ask of that development. Social equity is big. Certainly have some kind of forward thinking policies in that, and resiliency and ecological resiliency for storms and such. And it's been a long time since the last one, very long time. A little bit of the process. We've gone down a pretty long road. We've done a lot of great things. We had a big assessment of existing conditions. We looked at maps, we looked at roads, we did GIS, we did data analysis, we did US Census analysis, and that's all part of the background of what you're going to see tonight. It's called the data inventory and analysis part. That's been done. That helped your staff and us to look at what policies should be crafted out of that. And you have to have data to back it up. So that's already occurred. Did lots of community and stakeholder input. Sunit, it was probably.
So we've done extensive community and stakeholder input where we either had people come to us or we went to them, and that's been flowing through all of our drafts. And this is an example of one, because one of the things that the concerns that this board had was that it's because of sunshine, it's difficult for you all to participate as well. And so we've created this opportunity for us to have outside of just our community and outside of other leaders, that the board also participates in this process. So, and we continue to do that. And at the end, you'll hear about what we'll be doing for the next and final stage when it comes to our stakeholder input. From all of that, from gathering information from our community, we established guiding principles that we'll be having through our comp plan this time around. These would be 5 to 6 core themes that we will see throughout all of our elements based off of what our community felt was most important. And we'll talk about that in a second. We received input and direction from our different city departments. They served as our steering committee. As part of our steering committee, to understand what's important for when they're utilizing this for the development work that they're doing, that they would love to see. And then we married that with what the community would love to see. And that's a language that you guys will see in today's draft as well.
So as this process started, these are the high level bullet points that, as we're looking at any language, we wanted to make sure these worked into the goals, objectives, and policies. And just as a reminder, the goals, objectives, and policies are the part that you would adopt, right? So that's the part that's on the books. It's the part where, again, it's the findings of fact that you're staff has, when you say this project is consistent with the comprehensive plan, you're looking at those goals, objectives, and policies. So that's how this all kind of ties together, right? Here's some of those things, though. Provide a framework for future zone changes. There's some disconnection in the past about what a land use category from the comp plan allows to turn into from a zone change. So I think we've really dialed some of that in. The need for additional housing options, workforce, diverse housing types, diverse unit types, new types of housing. We really opened the door, I think, to some of those things. And then transitional areas between industrial, residential, neighborhoods in your industrial and business parks. And this is something we'll certainly get into on our one of our 6 topics. Coastal resiliency conservation, existing neighborhood preservation and enhancement. What's the difference between redevelopment and enhancement? We'll touch on that. And then major corridor redevelopment, beautification. Those are some things that we've heard from this board in particular and from all that were shared among all of our constituencies that we got that input from. As mentioned, guiding principles. This is what those are right now. So that's sort of works as a mission and vision. If these things were that, we have these 6 topics: safety, equity, resiliency, housing, economic development, and livability. And so the reason these are important because our goals and objectives might fall into multiple categories, and one category, housing, might fall into multiple goals and objectives, right?
No, I think you said enough.
All right. Okay. Now, with that said, Christine, first one.
Yeah. So one of the things, so we're going to kind of do it a little, like I said, we're doing it a little different. So we'll talk a little bit about what the focus of the objectives are, and then we'll actually look at the language. So one of the big shifts that we'll be doing within the land use element is that we'll be shifting our focus to more of a neighborhood level, where we'll be starting to talk about, because right now we just kind of say industrial, we say commercial, we say different things, but we don't really make it like this livable space that we're living in, right? So we're shifting our focus to making like, this is where we live, this is where we work, and this is where we play. So we'll be looking at specific neighborhood needs. So we'll be starting to bring back our neighborhood sector plans that we've had in the past and bring them back and make them alive as we start to program for the different needs, the infrastructural needs, the recreational needs, the housing needs within our neighborhoods. We'll also be providing the inclusion of, we'll continue with the needs of our CRA, but we're going to expand our focus because right now our comp plan focuses a lot on our CRA. So we'll be expanding our focus to ensure that all of our community is focused in when we're talking about development within our city. We have cross connection a lot with our housing element as well as with our other elements here in the land use element, but there's a lot of cross connection with our housing element because we're going into this neighborhood focus. And like I said, we are bringing back our neighborhood sector plan.
I just add, when we say we're going to do this, we're going to do that, what does that mean, right? I know you're probably asking yourself that. We have an implementation framework that'll come out of this. So each one of these chunks, each one of these goals and objectives, ultimately, I think the most effective way this is going to work is if we have an action, right? So how does this one work? Well, the policy in this future land use element will say, create a neighborhood planning framework. And so the implementation action is going to be planning department staff will come to you and say, are you ready to do our first neighborhood plan?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
It's already in draft.
Right? And this is not new. This is something that you have a legacy of doing. It's just been a long time, right? So this element sets up that parameter, sets up, the urgency. You could make it a high priority. You could do a pilot project, right? And so that neighborhood plan would do a whole engagement. It doesn't have to be a perfectly drawn neighborhood. It could just be a spot, that you've heard from your constituencies. They want to help specifically define what their issues are. And then you have public meetings, and then you put up a specific plan for that neighborhood, right? And that way you can demonstrate that you're more susceptible to funding or grant funding for capital projects, for bike lanes, for landscaping, streetscape, right? That's how it all kind of trickles down to actual change on the ground, right?
The policy language that we look at for this one is, one of the policy languages is 1.2. Right now it's titled redevelopment. We will be crossing out the original language, and new language that is proposed is the city shall focus on updating the comprehensive plan to remain in support of the adopted Community Redevelopment Agency's plan, so the CRA plan, while shifting a focus to neighborhood level redevelopment initiatives through neighborhood planning and investment.
So and this is the actual language too. So underline strike through, so you can see what was there, all that. Again, that neighborhood and community, before it said community enhancement, right? So we heard over and over again, what does that mean? Let's make it about neighborhoods too. Let's make everything under the framework of a neighborhood. So the added language here, stabilize neighborhoods, reduce land use conflicts. And then 2, boost the identity of Riviera Beach's neighborhoods as high quality livable areas by planning for neighborhood specific issues. That's what the policy looks like, right? But again, we got to follow it up with the implementation, which is the final piece. Okay, so that's our first chunk of our 6 or 7. So at this point, what we'll do is we'll open up our poll. And this is also Q&A, right, for that particular topic. So you got it. Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you. So this topic, this shifting from overall citywide or CRA redevelopment to neighborhood redevelopment and the mentioned policies, how do you feel about that topic? So A, poppin', and then B, good, indifferent, a dud. We're trying to figure out what you call a popcorn kernel that doesn't pop. There's some fancy names for it, but we couldn't quite remember.
So I want you to understand, we're doing popcorn and planning. So we made sure that for you to know that if you really love it, that we're shifting this where we're going towards, you say, A, it's popping. Make us feel excited. This is for you to get excited. If it's okay, it could be better. You can say good. If you don't really care, you're indifferent. A dud, we failed on it. That's not where you thought we should be going. Or E, you're just not too sure. You use your phone to answer one of those feelings that you have.
Chair, I have one quick question.
Yes.
Where's the funding mechanism? Where does that fit in? Because there's no language as to funding mechanism for all these great ideas. And second, you mentioned here the reference, the Community Redevelopment CRA plan.
Mhm.
Have we seen that? Have you?
Existing plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it fits in with your comprehensive plan and the changes, correct?
Yes, all plans in our city fits under the comprehensive plan. So we all start with our comp plan and everybody develops from there. So currently, as we read our comp plan right now, 1.2 redevelopment is all about CRA's redevelopment. What we're doing is we're shifting from just being CRA redevelopment to be redevelopment in the other areas within our city. So it's saying we continue doing that because that's an important part for our city, but then we're adding on other areas that we'll be touching as a city.
And how are we going to fund these great neighborhood ideas?
Yeah. So later on, we have different policies that are to support this, and it also includes when developers are coming in, but it's the focus shift that we're going towards that's important. So as you go towards grants and as you go towards developers that are coming in, and we say, yeah, actually, that's a great idea for that area because this is the vision that we have for that area. But this is going to help us to be able to set up those visions for those areas.
Just a thought, we've discussed this before over the years I've been on this planning and zoning board. If we allot developers to allot a certain amount of money, we got to make sure that those monies are going to be
Specifically for that.
yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
So please make sure we have specificity built in to whatever we're doing. Otherwise, those funds are going to go into a city pool and we'll
And be
never
used
see
for-
it
Never
again.
used to.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yes.
I would just like to add, because the comp plan is a guiding document that's going to last many years, we want to think not just about what we might have dollars for in the next few years, but we want to identify what we need to spend the dollars on in the future. Obviously, the city has ongoing capital improvement programs. There's various grant programs that become available. But sometimes what we need to do is really get it programmed even to a neighborhood level where we have that list that's been thought through so that when funding becomes available and as the city council is going through their annual budget process, the comp plan will already have thought through some of the important things that we either might want to apply some funding to directly or that we might want to apply for grants for.
Right, I understand that, but my thing is just keep in mind, we still need a funding mechanism and somebody to push this through during the budget process and city council. It does us no good to have all this great language and no funding for it. So we just got to make sure that we have somebody pushing for the funding, a grant writer, which is what we really need for all these wonderful projects we have, and then somebody pushing for the funding. Otherwise, it's going to be a document with just words on it. It sounds good. So that's only my point of view. Thank you.
Good point.
Shall we continue?
Let's continue.
Thank you. Okay, another point of focus. Here we go. Another point of focus in the future land use element is bringing in the idea of looking at land use and redevelopment through urban form, through lens of urban form. It's a new, really new it's not a new idea in the world, obviously, but here we've heard over and over again, let's think about view sheds. Let's think about how far apart buildings are from each other. Long term, what does this look like? Let's use it as a way to think about what happens on a piece of land, right? And so I think that was pretty exciting. I think we've heard that from a lot of different areas, a lot of different sources. One of the ways to do this is with a height study or a skyline study, especially when you're considering, you hear people talking about, we don't want the view to the water blocked from this place, from that place, if there's specific areas where that is sensitive to loss, right? This is one of the ways that we're installing that idea into the land use planning framework here. So here's the actual language. We have a whole new objective. You see all this is underlined here, right? This is all brand new. And it's just pretty simple. It's the city shall focus on urban form to evaluate development projects based on physical dimensions kind of thing. Specifically, the future downtown and waterfront were mentioned. So if there's additional, if this board has additional thoughts on where and what those areas that are sensitive are, please share them on our Q&A in the next couple of slides. And as I believe, Cindy, as part of this this planning effort, there will be a form study completed, or at least hopefully, right? Hopefully, we'll get that completed as part of this. So what this comp plan does at the moment is provides all the things that study should look at. And just to convey some of this is just illustration, very clear, this is not here. This is just an illustration of how you can use very technical analyses or very fuzzy, depending on what this board and the council wants to do. But if you have these technical computerized analyses on this image here on the right, you can see that's what you call the zoning envelope. So that's the extent to which the zoning, the height, the setbacks, floor area coverage would allow you to build. And these are all things you can visualize. The blocks underneath it are when you actually apply the other standards, like realistic standards like parking. How much parking do you need? So it allows you to do two things. It allows you to look at the maximum extent, not knowing what the future will allow you to do, which is that orange kind of envelope, and then look at realistic masses of buildings. So there's so many ways to do this. It's very exciting, and I think it will help you all to make those decisions about long-term urbanism and urban form in the future. So that's the urban form piece. So we'll go back and we'll go back to our voting and Q&A. So I'll go to this next one here, just a second. All right, same question. And if there's any questions.
Voted.
We already have an idea. Let us know your thoughts on this one.
I had a question. Is this similar language found in other cities that are along the Atlantic coast and water? Do they have similar language in their comp plans?
Absolutely, yeah. And what you'll see a lot of times, for example, we're bringing back the neighborhood planning framework. That's where you really will see it a little bit more when you get that specific area plan, right? This is the comp plan at this level. Future land use is enabling urban form to be looked at and used as a decision-making tool potentially, right? But yes, you'll see it a lot in smaller downtown area parts of a comp plan. Yes, so absolutely. All right.
Yeah, I still wanted to give a second for thoughts and reflections, if there are any
There are thoughts.
thoughts.
Okay, first of all, when you start placing 5,000 of those little buildings into a small area, okay, think about, hello, transportation. Let's think about,
Hold on,
has
let me-
anybody, I love when consultants, and not no disparaging the consultant here. I love when they come and they give us these presentations. I would love for them and our city members and those involved to travel our little roadways during the day. And I love for them to see the lack of transportation we have, okay?
Go with it.
And then go with that. Because right now, our city I don't know how the heck we're going to be able to absorb more development with the limited road infrastructure. Forget about the outdated waste and water infrastructure, okay? I don't even know, and I've been bringing this up for the last few years, I don't even know if there's a specific plan in place to when the heck we're going to start working on our infrastructure. How many water main breaks have we had? So before we start jumping into urban development, can we fix our infrastructure, our roadways, and transportation? I mean, that would be my point of view. And believe me, Uncle Sam sent me to a bunch of places, and great urban planning, great transportation. You didn't even need your car. That's the way to go. But you can't do that model in every city. Take my other home city, Miami. What a mess down there with all these beautiful buildings that are going up, no roadways, lack of transportation. Forget the flooding, that's on a side note, okay? So buildings are beautiful, but it's not accessible for the people that live there. Forget about the parking. Restaurants nearby, supermarkets. So when you're doing an urban planning, let's think ahead. And please, go to the roadways, see the lack of transportation we have, address that, our infrastructure with our city management team, see where we are, get a plan going. Yeah, we're going to get this zone started working on sewer and the waste pipelines that are almost 100 years old, or 70, as I've been told, or whatever the number is. It's outdated.
Yeah.
Okay, and now we keep adding more development onto that outdated, and we're looking to do that urban. I'm sorry for the long version here, but I'm not really too thrilled.
Oh, yeah. If I may.
Yes, sir.
The one thing I think that's important to consider is if you're not looking at form, but you're still making decisions, right? Considering all those things, this is just another way, this is another thing to add on top of, can our transportation network handle this, right? That's kind of how we think maybe it would help. It's just, it's, if you're looking down and not kind of looking up, but it's still occurring, right? This is just a way to make sure that, just like transportation, just like infrastructure, you're not losing another resource.
So this is a way for you to understand it more. And then to me, this says also, when you look at the language that we used, when these plans come in, a lot of the times we're looking at it, we're like, this is too big. This doesn't make sense for here. So this study is one way for us to understand what actually is most appropriate for our coast, what's actually appropriate for our corridors. So this would help us to understand what it would be more appropriate, as opposed to we just kind of guessing and saying, well, I guess 15 stories isn't so bad, right? This is going to help us to know that and have an extra tool to use in our box to say, well, this says that only 4 stories works over here. So we're going to go based off of the study, as opposed to trying to guess it as happens at times. So that's what that one was supposed to say. But it also tells me, because it was a misunderstood, that we need to go back and look at that language to make sure that it's clear for what would be the benefit of having one.
Thank you.
And I have a question also.
Yes, sir.
I have a question also. I just kind of wonder, I guess piggyback on what Mr. Fernandez was saying. I'm not here usually doing, my work hours are not really with, on Broadway. So I really don't really see a lot of the traffic unless for some reason I'm down in that area, and the traffic is pretty bad. But one thing I noticed that, it was about maybe 10 years ago, we redid Broadway, right? In that area, maybe longer than that. And how it was set up to where it seemed like it wasn't set up for the future of what we plan on doing to the city as far as the city growing. Now, at what point do we say we can't expand anymore on Broadway, or there's no other location for us to be able to expand, and when do we stop? Because I'm all about progress. I'm an educator, so I'm all about progress and about moving to the next level. But at what point do we say that it becomes to the law of diminishing returns, to where we can't do anything because we don't have the space for it, or it's not conducive, or like he said, for transportation? You know, if you put a bus in that area, I mean, the buses actually create more of a traffic problem. So then what else can we put in besides taking property or doing something else and actually moving west and expanding Broadway or whatever? And I know this question's kind of off topic, but you know, when you brought it to my attention, I'm thinking the same thing too, because usually when I come down, I'm like, man, this is a mess. But then we're going to add another building like we did in Lake Park right next to it, with your 800 more people coming in, and the dynamics of all the new things that are coming up. And don't get me wrong, I think it's going to be beautiful, but man, we don't have any space for some of this stuff. And then what do we do now to predict, with all the language and everything, which I think we're doing, which is the correct thing to do? What plans do we have in the future to be able to adjust to the space, to be able to make it all work to where this language actually be beneficial?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I could attempt to provide some comment related to that. Of course, we have private property rights that exist, so you have to respect those.
Absolutely.
For all of the properties that are in the city. But for example, if you go along Broadway, you have existing right to build by right, which is going back to the property rights, somewhere between 6 and 8 stories, depending on how much public space you provide on a property. But we also have some other options that different developers pursue, like our IHC PUD, which says if you meet certain conditions and if it's the right area, and the council determines that it's a good subject property for that particular, then you could build up to 25 stories. Where I think when you looked at that sample diagram, where you identify the maximum height that you can build on a particular property, when you look at that envelope, if you applied that to every property, if they all maximized and they all applied for the special approvals, I think the reaction we got is, well, wow, like imagine what that would be like if every property was developed like that. So part of why we have identified the need to do this study is because we want to look at, well, what would happen if we did maximize all of the development, and then perhaps craft some changes to zoning that would actually start to limit
Healthy.
in strategic areas where we might have those exceptions towards limiting that what that diagram was showing, where you have, you know, one high rise after one high rise after one high rise. So that the purpose of that study is to try and address, I think, the very fact that the board is mentioning. And I did make the comment that as we do that process, we really need to look at infrastructure, transportation, and utility needs, as long as we're looking at those maximum building, if I heard right.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Okay, I like when they throw around this, yes, I strongly support private property rights. However, we got to address the reasonability and the impact on the community. Let me just give you a little. Broadway and Blue Heron, that lot is for development purposes. What do you think the impact of a 23-story building on that corner would be to the traffic at Broadway and Blue Heron? So this is what I'm trying to say. I agree with the private property rights as long as we attach reasonability and the impact on the community. Right now, it's a hell going through that traffic light. Okay, we got people with running that red light trying to just beat it.
Right.
Imagine adding a 23-story, forget 20, let's do 10. 10-story building, 8 units per floor, 80 units with the traffic there. So that's what I'm asking. Just make sure when we're reviewing this, that yes, we entertain property rights as per our Florida Constitution and the state legislature. However, we also attach reasonability and the impact on the community overall. That's all I'm asking. Thank you, guys.
Yes. No, it's excellent.
Thank you.
And I think I just want to say we have the same mindset of what we're trying to say, and that's what that height study serves as another tool to help to make those decisions.
Thank you.
Okay, the next topic of emphasis or of highlight is really single family. Single family preservation, neighborhood preservation comes back to that first topic of shifting that focus to neighborhoods, and also looking at our corridors that might have more very productive uses on them, and trying to provide policies to move away or to look at just diversifying the uses along those corridors, right? And from single family. That's your peak, peak intersections. That's your like I said, most productive lands. And there are very good places for single family, right? So what this comp plan could do is set the framework for future zoning changes. So if it is at the policy level, it's the city's policy to preserve the single-family housing stock and add to the quality single-family housing stock in established neighborhoods. Or it is city's policy to preserve our high-value corridors for things other than single-family, right? And then when the time comes for a land use application, for example, to come in there, you would have the backup to go one way or the other. And so that's just one of the things that we've heard over and over again. So it's really kind of enabled through the land development code changes that would be coming after this, but we certainly wanted to bring it up to this board to see what the thoughts were as far as those kind of points, right? as far as the language goes, one of the ways this works is by the establishment of a general mixed-use land use category. Right? The next subject is specifically about general mixed use, but I wanted to point to this in terms of single family, because what the comp plan does is it says this land use can only become this zoning, right? Or it cannot become this zoning. And so this new category, it's kind of more of a change from an old one. It prohibits a change to lower density residential districts. And that'll make more sense when we get to the next subject, which is specifically this category, right? So that's just wanted to use that to illustrate how is this comp plan going to do these things with single family? Well, it can point to the zones that can or cannot be approved in these particular land use categories.
I might fix your language in a second. But
So that is its own topic for voting. It's really close to the next topic, which is general mixed use. So we could kind of blend them together.
Go ahead.
Shall we?
Let's blend.
Okay, let's do that. Because this all makes sense when it's presented all together, right? Okay, so this is one of the bigger moves, ideas currently proposed draft right now. And that's a general mixed use land use designation. It is not a zone. It's just enabling for a general mixed use zone. The name general mixed use was already in the plan. It just was never described as what it is. So what happened is there's an office land use was transitioned or renamed to general mixed use because the office category was very rigid about what you could build there. And through input, we heard that more flexibility was desired where those were. So office didn't allow residential uses, and it ends up where that office on the map where the boundary was drawn was probably a pretty good spot for adding residential, right? And mixed use, it just makes everything more flexible. In addition, there are places that are commercial, and I'm going to go to our map real quick just so you can see what we're talking about. So these red spots are commercial, right? Office are these really light blue, if you can see the cursor. See it? I don't think it comes up, but
we can't see the person.
so there's a couple spots, not much. The bright blue is public facilities, but the lighter blue in Singer Island, there's a little dot of it just north of the road. Along Blue Heron, there's some office just surrounding the downtown mixed use and a couple other spots. So what this plan does is it brings in this general mixed use category to make things more flexible, to open up the possibilities, because it ends up having these rigid single types of land uses. It's not that it's a bad thing, it's just in the future, 5-10 years down the road, we heard flexibility, right? We heard, it doesn't have anything to do with making bigger buildings, right? It just says, let's open the door up for other types of uses. Right?
Like some of the things that you heard from our community was like, we'd like to have cafes. We'd like to be able to have more leisure activities. And so this would allow us to be able to flexibly use some of our zone or some of our land uses to do just that, as opposed to having to rezone. I think we did that to office anyways about a year or so ago, where we had to help it do a little bit more. And those are in like different little small spots that we had it do. So it was important in order to allow more things to come into our city as opposed to going to other cities to enjoy them. We wanted to allow our land uses to be a little bit more flexible to receive those things.
Exactly. And that hatched, if you can see, this is the existing, and then that hatch diagonal red, white, that's the proposed general mixed use.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair. When we say flexibility, okay, if there's an office locally zoned now, and you got single families in the back, we don't want that flexibility to affect those single family by putting a 20-story building in there.
Oh, yeah.
So we got to make sure when we say we have to have flexibility, let's narrow down that language,
Mhm.
because if I was a developer and you give me the term flexibility, I'm gonna run with it.
Yeah.
So just make sure we tighten the verbiage on that flexibility.
Yeah.
So limit
So
it.
it serves as, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
So it has it'll have same parameters, like all our other land uses. And so it would be appropriately done where you're not just randomly having this high-rise tower that all of a sudden shows up just because we said flexibility. We're using the word flexibility so you understand that there's more flexibility to it, but the actual wording is different. It
Okay,
does
just
come
making
with
sure.
standards.
Just
Oh,
asking.
I would be the first to say no. Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we have some members of the public, and I think we do have a couple of cards. But our goal for tonight was to be have as participatory process as possible. So perhaps at this point, we could pause and hear some of the comments we have from the public.
So as we do each one, we have them come up and then be able to speak on that topic at the time.
As we're moving through to the different topics, if they just want to raise their hand, and then before we move on, perhaps they could come up and give comments if they so chose.
Well, we
I
have
would
one
propose
volunteer
the board
already.
do that.
Yes.
So would you like to come up now and recognize yourself?
Erica Davis, Riviera.
Hold on.
There's no.
Is there a mic?
Okay, she has.
Okay.
I'll hold it for you.
Oh, okay. Well, I have some concerns. You know me, I'm very voiceful when it comes to development or anything that's business going on in this city. I 1000% agree with my friend here, Mr. Fernandez. I am very concerned about these buildings. 2019, we were over in the clean and safe building, and we did a whole entire development with the residents of what we wanted. And it was not 20 stories on Broadway. Broadway is the marina, what we stand on now, it's a tourist attraction. And we need to build around tourism. We allow these developers, they're going crazy with this live local law, whatever the case may be. They're going crazy with the 20 stories. They want it to be Billionaire Row. We don't have the space for that. We have 4 lanes, 2 lanes on one side, 2 lanes going south, 2 lanes going north, and a medium. We don't even have room to even widen the roads. And you're gonna obstruct the views of the water when we're riding down Broadway. The traffic is gonna be terrible, and nobody's gonna wanna ride a bus. You can say ride share, Uber, whatever, but I like my car because I'm always in a hurry. So you all better think about that. And like I said, we need to build hotels. We can have hotels, but we want restaurants on this marina. We want shops on this marina. We need to enhance the marketing for the ship and have the hotel on that end. So you got to have a vision, not because you want to be greedy and build skyscrapers to make money. I don't appreciate them coming in here colonizing our city. I'm very pissed off about that. Not only that, Lake Park has a petition going around online because they don't want the 16 stories that Mr. Spiritus, our council person in District 4, is trying to build in Lake Park. And I also have backup where it says research finds 35 sinking skyscrapers on Miami Barrier Island. New York City is sinking under the weight of its skyscrapers, study finds. So before you all go doing that, like I said a couple of weeks ago, I told the board, you got to have an environmental study because we have hurricanes and they're getting worse. And we have sinkholes on Broadway sometimes. So you guys better think about the pros and the cons of this, not just allowing the billionaires to come in here, build skyscrapers, obstruct our peace and our views. And then if a destruction happens, it harms the people that are down below, businesses and residents. And also, my friend over here, he would like to build his condos on the beach. That's where they belong. He has a waterfront property right by the bridge, and he needs to build that. It's going to be really nice. And that's where those skyscrapers belong. They're over there now, and that's where they need to be. Thank you. Chair,
Yes.
Ms. Davis has a second card on this item as well. You- Thank you.
I think you guys need to do a study. Seriously, pros and cons of those things. I know West Palm, look at West Palm. They're gentrifying like crazy, moving all the people out of the neighborhoods, just throwing up blocks, building blocks, cement blocks. We don't want that. We have a beautiful city. We want our views, this is a beach town, and we want it to stay that way. We're only 8+ miles, and we need our place to stay like this. We love development, but you don't have to go crazy with it.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Any other questions during the process of this meeting? Please just raise your hand so you can be recognized. So when we get done speaking on that section, you'll be able to come up and give your opinion or give your statements on what you want to talk about.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
as she was talking, I did want to ask a question. Right now, all of that space has been picked up by the developers. And I know she kept saying we should do this, we should do that. My question is, what do we do now? Because those particular pieces of property has already been sold. The developers are here. Plans are being built right now. I mean, where do we go from here? Because now they want to build where the Miami sub place is at and across from the port. Where do we go from here? I don't know how we stop it, but what is the guidelines? I mean, what do we do to make this process? I don't know about going away because the land has already been bought, I assume. And I'm just curious because it is going to be a lot of building. I mean, we already know that. But in the future, the cars, this car showcase and all of this on Broadway and Blue Heron. And I'm just curious, as she was talking, where do we go from here? I mean, I don't think we could stop anything because it has to go to council. So what is the vision? I mean,
The residents didn't even know about that the property had been purchased. We knew it was.
I'm asking them.
Excuse me.
I'm asking this attorney sitting here and Mr. Sherman and them, if they can give, I understand you, but
Okay, go ahead.
for the residents to get a legal opinion.
I got you.
So,
Go
but
ahead.
I understand you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think this process that we're in right now is the best starting point for that. What we're hearing from the public and some comments from this board is a strong concern about overdevelopment. And as we look at all the policies in our comprehensive plan, I think that we need to keep that lens. And I think that those policies then direct the next step. So what comes after we adopt our comp plan, we propose to prepare all amendments to our land development regulations. That's the zoning. So if a person buys a piece of property, then they look at the zoning and that determines,
What they can
the details of the setbacks and how high is it. So this is the first step as we look at our land uses, as we look at the policies, how they affect growth and managing that growth. And then those policies should direct the next step in implementing them, which would be to change some of our zoning requirements in some of our zoning areas to try and address, I think, some of the comments that you hear. So that's sort of where we are in this process. Obviously, reference was made to properties that are already purchased. I don't think our job is to get in front of what the private market is doing, but to use this opportunity to help steer the future through the various steps I described. And I think this is the best starting point.
So, Mr. Chair, one more question.
Mhm.
Once again, the land that has already been purchased, I know there's a piece of property, I think it's where they're selling trees or whatever, and I'm understanding that they're going to build a 25-story building there. how do we stop? I mean, I hear you, but with the future of purchasing that land on Broadway, 10th Street, and I was even in a meeting at the Port of Palm Beach where they were talking about, once again, taking property, eminent domain. And I hope we don't get back into that particular process because I don't think people understand that the city of Riviera Beach don't have a handle on certain things. And this is a good starting point as Mr. Evans was talking about. But even I was concerned with the building. If you say go back to the island and build, the island is already built up. And when they did the Ambrit, I was in shatters because I did not know that building would be so humongous. And I got a feeling that some of these buildings, if we're not careful, as she's talking about, we're going to be put in the position to vote for projects to come here that's a little bit, I think, humongous for Broadway. Right now, it's heavily traveled. And I think with the projects coming on, it's going to be very heavily traveled. So what do we as a board do? Do we really look into it as Mr. Fernandez was um, explaining to us? I really don't know. I don't know the answer to it.
Okay, but let me.
Davis, go to the mic, go to the mic.
Okay.
My arm hurt a little bit.
That property, the Miami sub property, when was that purchased? I know it was an unsolicited bid, but the residents didn't know anything about it. But I did see that the developers was presented their little plan of what they wanted to build there, but I didn't know that the property was purchased. We have control of city, CRA property. We have that control, and we don't have to sell it to anyone that we don't want to if they're not building according to what we want. Now, when it's a private situation, maybe, yeah, but when that is city property, that was city property. And what we need to do, if we're going to be economically smart, when we have extra money, we need to start getting a surplus of properties in the city so we can control the development of the properties. Because no one should be coming in here. They're living in their nice, beautiful neighborhoods with peace and quiet, and we have all of this crime and gunshots and traffic and ambulances and all this crazy stuff going on already. They don't have to live here. We do. And we don't want all of that confusion. We want a nice, peaceful Broadway. We wanted a city. We're already landlocked with warehouses and boat yards up and down the street that we did not ask for because we gave our properties away as a board years ago. We ruined our city already. So we need to stop selling the last little bit of land to people that's going to come and obstruct our city and not give us our peace, because we want peace. So that when you guys vote and when the board votes, think about our peace. Think about when we own the land, we don't have to sell it to anyone until we're ready and figure out what we're going to do. You have to develop smart. And this city is not developed logically at all. It's all over the place. And it's going to be a problem because you guys didn't know what I just found out, that Blackstone, the investment company, has bought Safe Harbor. And they plan on putting a billionaire's row on the water over here. So I guess you didn't know that. So think about all this stuff when we're getting these developers coming in here sneakily purchasing up the property, and they have their own master plan. They want billionaire row all the way from down south Miami all the way up here. They want this land. They got it. 128 acres of Safe Harbor.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. One other question was what we were talking about here. I think, can you go back a slide where we talked about no, it basically talked about the corridor and taking away from our main corridors, away from single family homes.
Oh, yes.
All right. So would that be morely like, for example, we have a Broadway, right? No, excuse me, with Blue Heron, and the traffic between, let's say, between the police department, Will's Gym and Broadway, with all the apartments on the side. And the problem that I see there, because I do a lot of my business in that area, is that with more and more traffic coming into this area and more of these apartments or these condos are actually created to where for someone to park at their home, for them to leave, they have to back out in the traffic. And to me, that's one of the biggest safety violations. I thought that, especially with that many cars coming in, there's no stoplight, there's nothing for them to be able to, besides being an expert driver, or stop in the middle of the road and then back your way into your parking spot. Now, I don't know if there's anything we can do about that now, or is it? Because the main idea I had when I lived down south for a while was I saw an area where they had the houses to where the yards were in the front, right? I'm gonna see to try to make sense. And then the parking was in a road that was in the back portion of it, to where they would have to go into one of the roads and then come down the back, and then they would park in the back. That way, it was a lot more safer for the drivers to be able to park their vehicles in and out of a main corridor.
Like
Now-
an alley, like an alley.
Right, like an alley in the back, right. Is it safe to say that there's nothing we can do about what we have now? Because majority of the apartments or the majority of the condos on Blue Heron now are created like that. And since we're going to have these new influx of people coming in with these new condos, then how can we get ahead of this? Because we know this problem is going to come. And how do we fix something like that? Because that's going to be one day something's going to happen, and that's going to be the main reason for it. So what is it that we can do for something like that?
I will say that building orientation, what happens in the front versus what happens in the rear, you could absolutely set those parameters in a comp plan, and there's actually already some good stuff in there. And so if you wanted to change the zoning code that those properties in Blue Heron are on, and you have some kind of big idea, like you're describing, making the entrances or at least the frontages so you don't back out on them, or something completely different, this comp plan will back that up by saying we want this road to be accessed for pedestrians only, this building on this road to be alley loaded, for example. And on a broader level, the comp plan does provide for that. But really, it's through the land development code changes that if you wanted to tweak those kinds of specific placement orientation things, that's what would occur. But in my opinion, the proposed element does support that kind of building placement.
So thank you.
Yeah.
So in that situation also, like I said, I don't know much we can do about that now, but at least put something in place to where if we have any future use, we'll be able to set something like that. Now, as everyone was stating also with having a study being done, can we have something in place to where, since we know we're heading to this dilemma at some point, whether it's 10 or 15 years down the line, can we put something in place now to where, just for land purposes, safety purposes, because we don't want something to happen here like's happening in Miami and New York, can you max out the height and make it not as tall? So let's say 10 stories or 7 stories or something like that, to where, we're allowed to have businesses or companies come in, but it's only a maximum amount to where it be safe for the community, rather than having something astronomical and knowing that somewhere down the line we're going to have we're going to have land issues. So is it something like that we can put specifically in place, so when someone buys the property, they know they can't go more than 10 stories, or they can't go to more than 7 stories or something like that, to where they know there's a limit to it, rather than coming in and then negotiating 25 to 30 stories, knowing that's not what's best for the city?
Yeah, that's certainly, it gets tricky when you're talking about actually what somebody can and can't do. But I think what makes a comp plan great is that the city, in certain areas, you could say, this is what we want to see. Right? We want to see other amenities. We want to see open space as part of this project. You don't have to, in the comp plan level, you don't have to say how much, but if you just outline those exact things that, and possibly through the neighborhood planning process, the people who live there say you're missing, then you might be able to encourage and promote those kinds of amenities along with the project, right? So there's certainly that part of it, and that's what the comp plan can envision, yeah.
Because I think if we do a proper study, then that's something we can actually implement, as Mr. Fernandez was saying earlier with that word flexibility. You know, we don't want the flexibility because we want something in stone. If this is what it's going to be, this is what it's going to be. And these are the rules and regulations that these companies or organizations have to play by, rather than coming in and saying, hey, you know what? Let's do 25 or let's do 30. Let's do something to get something. And it's something that's not really beneficial for the city. All right. So any other questions?
You have another, just to add to that, what about environmental studies on any building, on a lot, impacting our waterways? As you all know, our Lake Worth Lagoon, that whole area there, it's worldwide, known worldwide as a major attraction for diving and snorkeling. We have some marine life in there that's special to the area, and it attracts tourist dollars, our own residents who use it. So we should have also impact studies presented by any developer, environmental impact studies on our waterways, because it will affect it. I'm telling you right now,
We
it
have
will affect it.
this is, remember in the beginning I said this element ties into our other elements, and that's exactly right. That's exactly right. We had that conversation when we talked about our lagoon, and I think it's a new policy, new objective. I don't know if they remember, but it's a new objective that we have where we do have that part into consideration. And to answer the last question, that's exactly what you described is what exactly we're talking about when we're talking about the height study, is to do just what you were saying, understanding what makes most sense, especially for the way that we would prefer our city to be, as opposed to just letting it kind of go wild.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say this iteration of the comp plan has a lot more stress on the ecological trade-offs. So it does have policies that say, if any development occurs in these areas, then there has to be some, counter effort to improve the marine ecosystem.
Thank you.
Any other questions by the board?
No, I mean, Chair.
Yes.
I was just going back, looking at this project that the board approved last summer, Oculina, which is 25 stories, 399 condos, right next to Nautilus. Yeah, so we're getting there. We're getting there. And this board did approve that project, which I did not vote on it. But yeah, we're getting there.
The only thing I'm seeing with that is that with that project also was that at that point it was like, okay, that's enough, right? Because that's going to take over. So when you're driving down Broadway, you're going to see that. When you come in, whether you're going north or south, you're going to see both of these buildings when they're eventually done with completion. And to me, that's enough, right, with our city, because we got other little buildings that we put in Berkeley Landing, a couple other places there. And I know some other projects being done with the mobile homes on the other side also. So at that point right there, again, since we're not able to extend our road or at least make it wider, then at some point in time, we're going to have to slow down. We're going to have to stop, or we have to minimize the what we're building in our city, because like you said, our city can't get any bigger than what it is, without moving into some other avenues of, like I say, eminent domain, which definitely we want to stay away from. Next subject.
Okay, so there's just a couple. Let's see here. Okay, so this is another one that's a big on-the-ground land use change, and then it's been talked about for a while, but this is kind of how the rubber meets the road with industrial transition areas. Currently, there are industrial transition, both land use districts and zone districts, but this is trying to be very intentional about locating these places where residential abuts your industrial business or commercial parks, and essentially the way to think about it is try to let the city in, right? Right. In the past, it's been big buffers, big berms, creeks, landscape screening to try to hide it, and that's of course totally acceptable because they're up against residential areas, right? But in the future, with more flexible types of industry in certain areas, right by the neighborhoods, perhaps this area would expand permitted uses in that small kind of frontage area. So things that would serve the neighbors. For example, I live, one of our offices in Port Everglades. They just opened a cafe there, and it's great. You get to mix different types of people. People you'd never met in your life, right? And so that's kind of what this is thinking. Where it's acceptable, of course. How can we bring some of those activities in? And also, of course, keep the landscape designs, make sure that as this redevelops 5, 10, 20 years down the road, certain industries are no longer needed, then that buffer area, that frontage area might have more of a smaller scale. It might step down. So this is just, at this point in the comp plan, this is an idea, right? This is saying, let's look at these places and let's think about both what uses could be in there that we haven't seen before, and what could some design guidelines possibly be. One way to think about this is you have the TLI zone and you have the SLI zone, right? The transitional limited industrial, right? To my knowledge, they're not on the map yet. Is that correct? Right. So huge opportunity here. We're basically saying in these areas, what if you thought about zone changes to those, or what if somebody was able to come in and put a smart application together for something that meets what this criteria and this comp plan says that you want as a city. So that's the idea, right? Let's look at just the language. So, the action here is to look at the list of list in the land development code in around these industrial business parks, diversify uses to include businesses serving the local neighborhoods. That's walkability, right? That's convenience. This next policy is actually looking at a land use map category with design guidelines for industrial transition. You don't have to go too far. It's not a huge leap because you have those zones in place. So, and it's kind of fuzzy here. I could probably zoom out like this and zoom in like this to make this easier. But if you look at that purple kind of snaking stripe, this is sort of just when you're looking at where does the industrial abut against residential, you can see this purple area here snaking through, right? So this comp plan, this is what we call a vision map, right? It's not a legal or even adopted map, doesn't have to be. This is just thinking about where would this application of these zones, of this type of urbanism or these types of uses make the most sense. So you have these kind of wholly surrounded pockets of neighborhoods. And if you look at where these zone changes might occur in 10 years down the road, maybe 5, then this map can identify that. So when somebody comes in for a land use application, although it's not adopted or official, it's still policy level, right? So this would help you as a board support that, or come in and say, we support that location, but it doesn't meet our parameters in our comp plan. So why don't you think about doing this? Why don't you think about adding this? That's how this all hopefully works in the long run, right?
This helps us, and I want to help a little bit on that one. So a lot of the conversations that we have here as a board, and conversations that we had with our community, is that we're tired of seeing all these industrial uses coming in, tired of seeing the warehouses that are coming in and living next to them, right? So this kind of gives that, this goes within those industrial areas. Instead of being this high intense use of that land, we also allow it to have a step down where we're able to so for example, I think it was K1 Speedway that came in and they had to change a lot of things in order for them to go into that area. So you're saying these types of things can come in without having to go through all the hoops and bounds, because we kind of prefer them a little bit more. It's not a harder use as opposed to, I don't know, I'm going to make up some like weird, smelly industry that shows up that wants to live next door to my house, right? So this would allow us to have instead of saying, we're going to put a bunch of trees as a buffer, you're actually instead saying you're using this space, you're using space, you're using a use that's a little bit easier to be next to homes as opposed to these undesirable uses that are sometimes get used within our industrial area.
Chair, I've got a question. Let me just elaborate on that, Mr. Sermons. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. We addressed that here and we passed it on to the city council and they approved it. Remember we talked about the industrial area, adding entertainment sectors. So I believe we've already worked on that because we didn't want overnight tractor trailer parking. We didn't want heavy industrial use added to these areas. So we allowed, as part of our industrial zone, I forget the exact terminology, but we allowed entertainment such as the K1 to come in. Am I correct?
Yes, back in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, we updated the use list allowed in industrial and limited industrial zoning districts to allow indoor recreation was, I believe, the term we
Correct.
used, and some other uses. And we also struck some that the board and city council didn't think most appropriate in the limited industrial district. So we did some updates on the uses allowed there. And what is being proposed here, I think, goes a step further to look at some sensitive areas that are most susceptible to being next to industrial uses. So I think this tool can assist when we're evaluating, because some of the most noxious uses are special exceptions. And so this could be a tool used when there's an applicant that has a special exception application on the table, which means it's more subjective as opposed to a by right use. A special exception is based on the parameters, location, it's more site specific. And so this is a tool that could be utilized to say, hey, in this pink zone, that's more sensitive, is immediately adjacent to residential and may not be the ideal location for these types of uses. So that's what this gets to. But yes, you are correct. We did make modifications to get more desirable uses in those industrial areas and eliminate some that we definitely don't want at all.
Right. And we also suggested that all those empty vacant lots that we have now that are designated as industrial, where the residential houses are right next door, we also suggested notifying those owners, telling them you've had it vacant for years. We're allowing you the opportunity to come before planning and zoning and city council to rezone your property from industrial to another one that's not industrial. So I believe we've addressed that as well to basically mirror what we're being told tonight.
Yes, I will say this, it's all that and more. And this is a way to think about tying all this together and then thinking in the future. I will say this in one way it works. The Port of Palm Beach has their master plan, right? And they actually do have, I think, an objective and a policy that references this area, right? And it says, consider the scale and context of the neighborhood. So we're also kind of going off with that to make sure that if anything happens there, and it's referenced in our comp plan, that exact thing is referenced in there, which I think we heard was very important to make sure that those two things were consistent. And so if something happens there, we point to their plan and point to this plan and say, it's just kind of strengthening that whole argument is really the idea.
Okay.
Mr. Chair? I'm
Yes.
sorry, were you finished, Mr.?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
As you were talking about the port, I know I stepped out. What were you referencing about the Port of Palm Beach?
So the port had done their master plan, and they mentioned specifically, if you search for Riviera Beach, and it's mentioned 4 or 5 times, and one of the times is on policy, I can't remember the name, but it's their land use section, and it says areas, neighborhoods specifically adjacent to port activities, any land use changes that occur should consider the scale and context of the housing in the neighborhoods nearby. Now it says that, right? But this is the city's way, I believe, to make sure that stays kind of honest over time. One way.
May I just ask a question? The port, I was at a meeting and they said they wanted to purchase some land. I think it's 10th, 11th Street, and they want to build warehouses over there, and there's houses there. Kind of Port of Palm Beach, and they wanted, I think I mentioned again, eminent domain. How does that affect the city of Riviera Beach. I know nobody want to talk about the port. For some reason, they don't want to talk about the port because they're a different entity, but they are in the city of Riviera Beach. And, you know, for them to come in and want to build warehouses, how does that affect that particular neighborhood? Because it's a small neighborhood and I understand on 11th Street, they're going to build houses or condos. I can't quite remember. A what?
I think it was apartments.
Mhm.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so they want to come in and build warehouses because they say they don't have enough. And I would hope that the city of Riviera Beach does not entertain them to sell that land. We have a lot of warehouses. I'm sure that they can find a warehouse to store whatever they want to store. But to continue to come into the city of Riviera Beach where our neighborhoods now will be affected. And they said they were here and they want to build a warehouse where they will, I think, clean the boats. And we passed it. And now I'm hearing, I think I was somewhere and they said, oh no, we're gonna sell it to somebody else. I think that should stop. If they're gonna purchase the land, then they should be able to purchase the land and build, not pass. I don't think you can stop them because that's their property. I think, I'm not sure how it goes, but I think as planning and zoning, we need to stop a lot of things. And the one thing we need to stop is those warehouses. I do have a problem with that.
I will say about this specific transitional industrial type of idea, exactly what the comp plan can do is when you're coming towards a decision about how anything looks in that area, we hope that we would have parameters in there that would help you as a board to put conditions on that and
I hope
design
so.
guidelines.
I just
at
don't
the
want
minimum.
to see them come there and put those warehouses there and people are been there for quite a number of years. And then they decide they want to come over and put their warehouses. Well, my thing is you all should put in place, not us. I guess you can bring it here, but it's up to the city of Riviera Beach to say, no, well, no, let's not do this plan. I don't know how you do it, but it should be in the plan that things like that, the Port of Palm Beach, they don't recognize us. They don't even talk to us. So I don't know. Well, yes, I do know because we have prime land here that they want. And they want to put these warehouses that would make us look bad. And like I think she said, they don't live here. Most people don't live here in the city of Riviera. Why you want to bring these particular projects to us? And I think we should come together and try to figure out a way to just put a stop on these type of projects coming in. I'm venting.
Thank you.
No, you're
Thank
fine.
you.
I'm venting today.
And I would like to say the same thing that Ms. Shepherd was saying, is that is it something we can put in place? Because I didn't know the information that she just stated was that we approved that project and we were told what they planned on doing with it. So you telling me now that they sold that and now we're at the behest of what the new company may come in and do, and because it's already been approved, that where they can just make a regular warehouse out of it rather than what it was actually intent when they came to our board, what they were going to do with it. So now they just doing something else with it now. Can they do that?
Mr. Sermons?
I would answer.
This is my personal opinion, and I'm sure our legal will clarify, whatever restrictions are on the property when you bought it, stays with the property.
Right.
Unless you come back before the board and city council to request a change. So if it's already voted on, when you buy a property, you're stuck with whatever was voted on and whatever was approved. So you have to come back to us and the city council for any additional exemptions or anything else.
Mr. Chair.
But that's what I was trying to say was, are there rules in place that state what he just stated? Are there rules there that say that to where we don't have the issue of someone in the middle of it just say, okay, we don't want it, we're gonna give it to someone else, and that person has a totally different intention for it? Is there something in place that stops them from doing so?
So the development and entitlement process, when a project goes through that process, they obtain the right to build a particular building or do a development if they get approved. They're not required to do that. So sometimes, projects change, approach changes. But if they want to do something different, then they're required to go back, like the board referenced, they're required to go back through that process to change what they were planning to do, yes.
Okay.
So is that project coming back to the planning and zoning board? You don't know?
Yeah, I'm not aware of what the ports.
I just heard it in when I was at the meeting in Port Palm Beach. I mean, the port, that they mentioned about, well, not them, Wayne Richards told me that. They were not building there, and he's the attorney on that particular project. So that's where I got that from. And not only that, may I just bring something up while I'm venting? The project on 20th Street, what's the name of that church that's building, the new building? Used to be St. George.
It's still St. George.
St. Mark's now, I think.
Okay, yeah, St. what now? St. Mark's. Okay, they said they're going to be building within, what is it, 12 months to a year? I think it's been over a year, and I haven't seen a shovel in the ground. So when they come here and they tell us these stories, they're going to start building tomorrow, and they start building 2 years from now. How do they come in? I mean, how does the city approve them telling us this and then they don't do it?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And I don't always, but I do happen to, was just looking at that project today, actually. So when a project is approved, they have a timeline in which they're required to perform, and that's right in the resolution that approves the project. In this case, they have been working. They've been developing their construction drawings, and it has taken them some time, but they are certainly intending to move forward, and they have been in contact with our department as of today, actually, getting ready to submit for building permit.
So now the building permit, since we're bringing this up, the building permit takes another year and a half? Because I'm hearing things are not speeding up for some of these projects. I'm just listening. So they come in and say, we're going to start building within a year, 18 months. I know it's been almost 15, 16 months. And I guess now you're saying they're in the process of getting the permits. Is that it? And permits take how long?
They're in the process of submitting for permits, so they haven't actually started that.
Okay, that's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Any other questions? Like to proceed?
Right, if we could do a quick vote on that so we could kind of record some of the, there we go. Some of the responses. I think we got some really good feedback on that one, and the last two in particular. So.
And what we're referring to is the idea of
The industrial transition, because that's, as it's been, there's kind of a legacy of planning for it. Is that the right direction? Is there an additional thing we need to do? Or does that sound pretty good and we're on the right track for updating the comp plan with this particular stuff?
Just if we could also entice those vacant lot owners, give them the opportunity to do other than industrial with their, I think that would be a way forward as well.
That's a
But
great point.
if the city doesn't initiate that contact with those owners,
Won't
we're not
happen.
taking the property away, don't get me wrong. It's their property, but it's been sitting vacant for quite a while. Some of these locations
Mhm.
that maybe by notifying the property owners that come back to us and there's other opportunities available for your industrial areas, we might get something done.
It's an excellent implementation action item to add to the plan specifically. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Ms. Davis. Ms. Davis, back up for commentary.
And we also need to ask the warehouse owners to clean up their facilities. Along the railroad track, it looks horrible going north. Even the Port of Palm Beach need to clean up or put a wall up there. I'm sick of looking at those trailers when I'm going down Barack Obama. Barack Obama looks terrible. It looks like a war zone. And planning and zoning needs to get on their job and tag these people and make them clean up the back of their buildings. It's disgusting. I'm sick of people coming in our city, getting businesses, and it looks like a dump here. We don't want to live like this. I'm very upset, as you can see. I'm very passionate about my city because every week when I get up here to speak at the city council meeting, I'm raging because we can do better. We're talking about developing, and we can't even keep our existing buildings clean or our existing homes clean. We need to clean this whole city up. It's disgusting on this side of town. Thank you.
David, just a moment. As a planning and board, we have nothing to do with code compliance.
I'm looking at.
However,
office
code
guy.
compliance,
Office guys over there.
and yes, and and they've heard it from us. They've heard it from us in the past. And then we've also told individuals like yourself who come up to please email them, get an address from them, code compliance, and send in your complaints.
Oh, I've taken pictures. I'll be calling them tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I wish we had the power to do that, but I don't think Mr. Sermons would like to give up that power of his code.
Code enforcement.
Just a suggestion. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
All right. Some of the things that we heard from our community and Ms. Davis, a great example of it is just, this is home. And so one of the things that we wanted to emphasize is the idea of encouraging more of our identity, who we are throughout our city and the way we develop. And so we'll be looking at policies that talk about strengthening the neighborhood identities themselves. What makes them different, what makes them stand out, what are ways that we develop to continue and encourage us, or what needs to change in order to shift our identity, however that's decided through the neighborhood planning. Also emphasizing our community, our own heritage, and seeing that through different things as it like wayfinding, seeing that through the arts that goes up, seeing that through the way that we the architecture that's used that says Riviera. The language that goes with this are a couple policies. We'll look at the one that says the city shall incorporate new welcoming gateway signage criteria into capital project planning to ensure new signs are located at the appropriate municipal boundary to indicate a cognitive entrance to the community and shall be adjusted if the boundaries change. Also, the city shall build on its cultural heritage and promote its identity by creating a neighborhood signage program with identifying logos, brands, and maps that locate cultural and recreational centers. The city shall implement this by utilizing Public Works Department maps and by installing wayfinding signage, neighborhood welcome signs, and banners, murals, or other visual cues that help boost neighborhood identity and heritage.
So you'll notice on this map, there's a number of dots, points in blue and in magenta, and the G is the gateway signage. The dark blue ones are the ones that are existing, and then the white infill G circles are the ones that might be expanded to this network. And so we heard over and over again that you don't know when you're in Riviera Beach, particularly on the west side of town. And I know it might not seem like much, or maybe it does, but having this kind of network or perimeter with expanded community signage could really mean a lot. And certainly this is one way that we're visioning this happening in the future. This is, I don't know, there's a question about how do you fund it? That's always going to be the question, right? So, but this is certainly one of those things that if you have it in your plan and you're going out for grant funding for it, and you say, hey, look, we have this in our plan, it's right here. Everybody in the community said yes. It was unanimous. Then you're probably going to be one step ahead of the town next year that doesn't. So that's kind of why it's in here. Sorry, did you have
The only thing the signage, something nice. I mean, I don't know if we can incorporate that. I know when I go through Village in North Palm Beach, I look to my right, I see the Village in North Palm Beach with the captain's wheel. I look to my left, there's another one. I go two blocks and there's another one. So I understand with the signage and we're proud to have it. but just make sure it's something not like a little metal sign, welcome to Riviera Beach, and it's about, 2 feet by 2 feet, and you're riding by and you missed it.
I think
And
a
have the
great,
fish. Oh, Chair. Right, the fish.
That fish, oh, Jesus, Lord.
I think a great example would be what the city of Lake Worth did, or what they have right now. It's really colorful. You come off of I-95, whether it's the 6th Avenue exit or 10th Avenue exit, or coming off of Dixie, you can see the bright colors. They're tall and they're very noticeable.
It's something that pops and stands out.
Exactly.
I'm going to do a plug actually right now. You should have received an email. If you haven't, I'm going to resend it again. With our arts advisory, with our public arts board, they were asking for one-on-one interviews with you all. And that's part of the conversation, are those gateways. So I'm going to resend that again to make sure that you guys all sign up to give your opinions on
Is
public
that the
art.
one, I'm sorry, Chair, is that the one Terrell is the chair?
Yes.
Like the same opinion we had on this little fish here.
Oh, I don't know about that situation.
Enlarge it, heavenly Lord.
Too
Yeah,
sensitive.
right.
You were outvoted.
I think that little fish is suing because it doesn't depict what they look like. That's my humble.
Mr.
I'm
Chair,
starting a class action.
Yes,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
since we're bringing up this fish, why didn't this go before planning and zoning where we can get a look at, since this is colorful art? I mean, I've never seen it till what did I see? And I guess a piece of paper.
That was, I think, through the city administration.
Yes, the city manager's office led the initiative on rebranding, and it was not related to a land development process, and it did not go through this committee.
Well, I think somebody from this committee should have sat on that committee, because to see that fish, it makes me feel like I'm eating sardines or something. I don't know who thought of that, but really, it just makes me want to have some crackers, hot sauce, to sit there and eat that fish. That is
The
hard.
shepherd, I can't say.
I'm not trying to be funny.
We're hungry right now.
I just,
We are
I'm,
starving.
no, I'm serious. When you do art and coming from Detroit, we had art. I know what art is. I went to the art galleries. So I'm trying to figure out who think of these things. And I wouldn't think of things myself. I always get somebody to say, well, what do you think about that? It should have went through planning and zone, since we're helping to plan the city. Because if I was coming from out of town as a tourist and I saw that, I would have really shook my head and say, who's behind that? When you go to Detroit, you see these beautiful monuments, these beautiful pictures, and you have to stand in the cold snow and look up and say, wow, that's beautiful. But not with that fish. You said the manager's office? I apologize.
And this is actually a great way to think about this neighborhood planning effort too. The other signs, the smaller signs, I think through neighborhood plan, you could establish what that character and identity is and allow that neighborhood to maybe come up with something. It might not be a sign, it might be a piece of public art, who knows? But that's a big part of this neighborhood planning process, is to have that involved.
I'm glad you said neighborhood. That's what we need to do. We need to get the community, the art advisory. I'm not picking on the poor fish or whoever thought about it, but like, I don't think anybody knew except a select amount of people. And before you knew it, the city was rebranded with that, whatever you want to call it.
Sardine.
I don't even know what fish is. Anybody even know what fish it is?
Sardines.
Sardine.
Sergeant Major.
No, what it's supposed to depict. I forgot the name of that fish.
Sergeant Major.
The
Sergeant
sergeant major fish.
Sardines.
Have you ever looked at what the sergeant, what it looks like? The real image of that? Nothing near that. But anyway, let's move on. So I don't want to bring up the fish story anymore.
But excuse me, have you all went to Port St. Lucie and seen that beautiful, when you walk in there, you see Port St. Lucie?
Oh, yeah.
Boy, that makes you want to go to Port, and I go to Fort Pierce, but that Port St. Lucie, it makes me go right to the right so I can go shopping. It entices you to come to that city.
Nice sign.
So, I mean, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, yeah, so the excellent feedback there. We'll get one more second for the quick polling. I think everybody's about in. Everybody feel free to participate. And I
And I
think,
still kind of, one says, or whatever, 20% a dud, that I'd like to hear ways to improve the language. This is this opportunity that we're doing. So what's way to improve it in order for it to move out of that category? You're not anonymous. I can see who does it. I just want to know.
I'm
Just want to know
sorry.
what makes it better. How
I
do we
hit my
improve?
phone and knocked out. I really forgot I was on it, so,
I've been writing your comments,
okay.
Yeah.
I really knocked it out.
but this is our opportunity to improve them. All right.
one more, more topic. Okay, this last topic is just annexation because there's a potential shift or potential different way of thinking about it, and we wanted to make sure that we got the board's feedback on it. Now, annexation, is that a future land use topic? Well, not exactly. There's another element that deals with it, but we wanted to use this as an opportunity to hear, based on what we've heard, there's a sort of wind blowing in the direction of incentivizing the industrial pockets, and it's not just industrial; it's pockets in general, right? But a big part of this that needs to be considered is the county has their future annexation maps, and it includes those areas. So we wanted to make sure that those two things aligned. It's really considering the long-term health of the tax base, support for industrial jobs, but that's kind of here to discuss. So it's not a whole lot of language in this element to talk to, but just wanted to present this here today and see what your questions or thoughts are on that particular subject. Anything to add?
I think it's important that, so the county has, like David said, the county does have a future annexation map, right? Some of the areas that are on that for Riviera Beach, we service them. So they're utilizing our waste, they're utilizing water, different things. We service them already. So, and it's really just kind of like the feel of the board. What the idea is in the next 15, 20 years, 10 years, do we pursue annexing them into the city since we already service them anyways? They're landlocked around us because our neighborhoods are around them, and they just say Palm Beach County, but we're already giving services to them. So is that something of interest for the board to look at, annexing them into the city, so that way we can actually also get their tax revenue, they become a part of the tax base?
Residential areas or commercial?
Those are,
What land do you have a map of what land you're talking about?
he'll pull it up, one moment. You can do the land use map. Yeah.
Yeah, the land use map.
Mhm.
I think it's economically
It's
logical, right?
economically sound, yeah.
More money.
Right there, you can use that, yeah, use the white. For you to see, well, go towards that one. The one that's to the right of 95.
Oh, right here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And all the ones that are, right?
What is it? That looks like the industrial area now, correct?
These areas right here.
That's industrial. If I remember that area, that's industrial.
Mhm.
So my question would be, since we're providing services to them for the last few years, why the heck haven't we annexed it? Now-
That's the question.
Okay, well, that's a great question. 15, 20 years from now, that's a moot point. We lost all that tax revenue 15 to 20 years. So my point would be, annex it now, because it's not a residential area. As all are familiar here, Palm Beach Garden went with a major annexation of residential areas, and they got knocked down.
Mhm.
Because nobody wants a city to come into their residential neighborhood and take it over. I'm doing fine like it is. But this is an industrial area that we're already servicing. So my suggestion would be, get city council involved, get whoever is involved, and annex it. So why are we looking at this 15 to 20 years? That's my humble opinion. What
Oh,
are we
I
looking at this
I
15,
just
20
gave
years
you a
from now?
random number.
Mhm.
So in our future, should we be considering it? Because it's on our maps to look at, and we haven't done anything as a city. So should we be?
We
putting
should have done
language to do
it. My
that?
humble opinion is we should do it. We should have done it. And yeah, and we're providing services and everything else. And an industrial center, the owners of the properties are already getting our services.
Understood.
I think the only thing they won't get is the police service because it's in Palm Beach County, so the sheriffs will respond. Okay, I'm sure the sheriff's department don't want to send a unit out in the middle of nowhere surrounded by Riviera Beach. That's my humble opinion. I don't speak for the PBSO. But I would recommend to the city council or whomever's involved now to annex it and not wait 5 years. That's kind of silly. I thought you were
Question.
talking about other areas, residential or anything like Palm Beach Garden just went through. But this is ridiculous. We should have done it. That's, again, my own humble opinion.
Chair,
Yes.
is that area considered unincorporated?
Yes. So anywhere on our map where you see, where you see this, all here, this is all unincorporated. And wherever they're kind of landlocked, like these right here, we have to go through to get to the rest of Riviera to give services. So that way they also get our services because they are landlocked.
Yeah, do it. I agree.
That's a no-brainer.
Oh, hold on. It's not my place. Sorry. She was standing by me, so I just assumed.
Yes. Yes, you want to speak?
Do they do they pay business taxes to us as well? They don't pay us business tax because they're unincorporated? ASAP. ASAP, yes. What else I was gonna say? What are we gonna do about Valorum taxes if DeSantis decide to take them away? While we're talking about development, if we develop, how are we going to get our Valorum taxes if he takes them away? What revenue are we going to get from developing?
They better come up with a damn good plan.
They're gonna have to. They're gonna have to come up with some plan for that. Because I was thinking the same thing: is what's gonna happen when that goes away? What money we're gonna have to be able to do the things that we need to do in our city, to build up the infrastructure or do whatever we need it for. What idea will we have? There's no plan. It's just a.
Gotta vote.
Ain't nothing there, nothing.
No, Ms. Simon will not comment on that. All righty.
The quick poll on that one too. We've got that's our last big topic. There's a lot more than that, but these are the ones that we wanted to, clearly, we had some great feedback on those. Fantastic. So get some polling on that.
You want the polling on why we haven't done it already?
On the directive to make it a high priority in the comprehensive plan.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
while you are waiting, Mr. Sherman, did this go on the website about the comprehensive plan tonight? Because I hear a lot of people ask me questions and they say they didn't see it on the web.
We worked with our marketing and communications department to advertise today's hearing, and I'm not sure all of the places that it made to. Ms. Simon, did they provide a full list?
It was on our social media. It was on the website. It was on the website, and it's also on our jumbo. The what is it called?
The marquee.
The marquee.
Well, I saw it on the marquee. I did. But I got a little feedback when they were calling to ask me about it tonight, and I said yes. And I'm just so surprised a lot of people did not show up about the comprehensive plan of the city of Riviera Beach.
Why wouldn't they want to see my face? I don't know. Yeah.
You just no, but I'm quite concerned.
No, I am. That is.
That people, and they come here asking questions about the comprehensive plan.
So the good thing about it, the good thing about, and you can put this up as our next steps. An important thing for us is that we do recognize that we're in the middle of the week and sometimes people have the fatigue or they just don't see things. So we are providing other opportunities. So this was just on the land use element. On our website, we have used on the website Riviera2040.org. Everyone still has the opportunity to continue to read these different elements and actually dive deep into them and give their comments there. In order for them to continue to participate. We'll also be having another big community meeting where we help people to see all of the elements, because this is probably one of our better attended ones outside of housing. So all of these elements, we'll see it again. We'll be calling them all so everyone can come and have opportunity. And then we'll also have them displayed for, we're going to try to have an open house at the city hall once we get approval in order for them to be up for people to see them, to see what we're discussing. So we will give them other opportunities to continue to comment.
What city hall?
Our city hall.
You're gonna do what now?
We're gonna put up the information in our city hall for people to be able to read and see it. We're gonna
Inside?
inside, correct?
Do a lot of people come inside city hall?
Yes. You don't come in?
I didn't know you were open for business.
We are open for business.
No, I know you're open for
Yeah.
business, but I didn't know a lot of people came through there to.
Yeah, we're thinking of city hall, and we also are looking at some other satellite positions like the library and stuff where people kind of pass through.
Okay.
So we will have those opportunities in April and May. So, but we thank you all for engaging in this conversation and having a great opinions to bring on this. So for the next steps, we'll be taking your comments. We'll continue taking our community's comments. The comments of our steering committee has already been put in, and then David will magically put it into words, what needs to be done. We have a few that we looked at that we were like, yeah, we totally missed it, that it didn't convey what we wanted it to convey. So we'll be looking at our language and fixing some of that. And I think this was great conversation.
It's great to get direct feedback. Thank you very much.
We have a draft copy of the comp plan. Have you sent out what you have to date so we can take a look at the comp plan itself?
What we were
draft.
just working on?
Do you have anything?
It's in your packet. You have this particular element in your packet. And then you have, for all our other ones, everyone has always had copies. We make sure that those go out for you to read before you get here.
Website, aren't they all the
Everything's on our website too. So if you didn't find it there, you'll have it on our website as well.
Okay.
Riviera2040.org. Yes.
Thank you.
Send your comments. We read them. We use them. Thank you.
Chair,
Again,
Great job, great job.
Chair, may I ask
Yes.
a question? Ms. Simon,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you for your presentation this evening. Is there a future land use map overlay over like a satellite view?
Ooh. We have it as such.
Okay.
Right now, you can find it on, how do we get to it? How do I get to it?
You
So
can
when you go
email me
onto our
later.
website, you click on zoning, I think it is, and then it'll have two layers, our future land use layer as well as our zoning layers for you to see it on a satellite view.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
And also we're updating it, so it's going to be pretty cool and fancy at the same time.
PDF.
Excellent. That's all we have from our end, Mr. Chair.
Excellent, excellent. Great job again, as always.
Very good.
Are there any public comments? I know we did something a little different today where people came in and spoke afterwards on the topic when it was hot. Is there any other comments by the public and any other comments by the board?
There are none, Chair.
Ms. Davis, you done?
thank you.
All right, so let's move on to section 10, which is general discussion. Any staff updates?
No, Mr. Chair.
Or do we have any correspondence?
No, sir, Chair.
I would like to speak about something that I noticed, and it's been here for a while, and I'm pretty sure I think code enforcement should have, let me see if I get this correct. What's the name of right where the new fire station is to the west of that residential community? I'm kind of getting confused.
A village?
That's National Village. Thank you. Some reason Tiffany Lakes kept going in my head. So National Village. For some reason, noticing that, because I know code enforcement comes to my neighborhood and they're constantly monitoring the yards, making sure everything is done correctly. Has anyone seen that big hole in the wall?
Oh my God, it's been there for a year and a half.
Right. And is that being addressed, or does someone address that, or does code enforcement address that? I want to know who addresses that, because that's a bit of an eyesore.
Yes, the city has made the determination that we need to step in and address that. It is private property in the HOA that owns and is responsible for the maintenance there. But there's too many challenges with the neighborhood to address it. So the city has stepped in and taken several steps, and we've worked with the property owner, and we've identified a contractor. The permit has been issued, so we do expect it to be repaired in the next couple weeks. So yes, changes will be coming soon on that as well.
I don't know what
Is that
happened.
a car accident that caused it?
It was,
Okay,
yes.
the driver has insurance?
That's what
So
you paid
is
for.
anybody from, I know I've been with Mr. Evans in the past. You have a vehicle that strikes a public or private property. That information is contained in the police report. They have insurance. Why is it so difficult for us to go through the insurance company and get the money so that the city doesn't have to lay out these funds to repair that wall or anything else that's damaged?
I can't speak to the procedures of police and traffic accidents, but I can say that the city within the last 30 days has taken swift action to step in and get that done.
Okay, just make sure we don't pay for it if you got somebody insurance paying for it. Because I just get these runaround whenever I ask questions. It's a very simple question. The insurance company, have somebody reach out to them. They will pay for that wall. Otherwise, the city's going to end up paying for it. And good luck getting that HOA to come up with the money. That's my humble opinion.
I can say that staff did look into that, and we were not able to verify insurance of the driver at the time of the accident.
Wow. Okay, one other question also. The property behind the gas station on I guess Obama and Blue Heron that's been vacant for about 50, 60 years. Have we ever got in contact with the person who owns that land to find out what we are going to do with that land since it's been vacant for so long?
It's located where, Mr. Wiley?
Say again?
It's located where?
On Obama and Blue Heron, that corner right behind that gas station, that big field where they put the political signs.
Oh, yes.
So I remember walking up and down going to Suncoast when I was a kid, and it was vacant just the way it is now. So I was wondering, have we ever got in contact with the person who owns that and find out what we can do with it? Because that's a nice big property that the city could be doing something with.
We've received, I believe, one, maybe two inquiries with someone, making some soft questions about what can be done there, some interest in development, but nothing concrete. And the ownership was involved, I believe, with one of those inquiries. But to this point, nothing serious for that property.
I mean, for 50, 60 years, that's a long time for a property to be vacant, for nothing to be there at all. And at some point in time, the city has to either move on that or force the person to be able to do something, because that's a nice piece of property that we can utilize for something that can actually, to make our city a lot more attractive, or I'll put something there that we may need and everything. Because like I said, it's just sitting there, and our workers are going there to clean it up, to make it look like something. And we're doing that every 3 or 4 months or whatever like that, but it's not doing anything for the city at all. So if someone can please get someone to be able to at least come to a logical conclusion of how we're going to do, or what we're going to do with that property at some point in time. Because that's one thing I expected to change, at some point.
I will take a look into the city's options in that situation. We do have multiple vacant properties in the city that have sat undeveloped, and figuring out what powers the city has to compel the owner to do something is something that I will have to do research on to see what options we have there.
So
Note
owner for
taken.
that property, or that property has multiple owners for it? Or just
I'm not
one?
sure of the ownership structure at the moment. That's something I would have to check to see whether it's an individual owner or a corporation, LLC, or something of that nature.
You have address?
Okay.
Do you have the address?
I don't know whether it has an address or not. She's asking us to have an address to it.
The property appraiser.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Question for staff. Do we do outreach with developers to advise on what we want to see in the community or the city?
Not general outreach. There has been situations where I would say probably primarily in the CRA or with specific city initiatives on city property where there was outreach meetings to announce that the city or the CRA was looking to develop, looking for a public-private partnership type of situation to develop a property. So there's been situations like that where we have went out to advertise and kind of market properties, but for private properties, generally, we do not do that. So it'd probably be uncharted territory for us to, try to market someone else's property for that. But we are looking to be creative in this next round, in the next comprehensive plan, to figure out how we can get our city to where we want it to be. So it is something worth exploring.
Thank you.
Any other comments by the board?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I do want to say I thoroughly enjoyed this plan that was put before us, and it gives you a chance to open your eye to find out just what's going on in the city and give you a chance to answer the residents. And it has become very strikingly clear to us that the city is being built up. And as a member of planning and zoning, we do have a right to ask questions. And I'm really thankful that you all asked the right questions and it's publicized and the public without the member of the public was here. And it was just enlightening to me because I've seen this put it together, but to come together like this was just a wonderful adventure. Mr. Gallen is not here, but I just want to clear this up right quick. He was talking about the roller skates over at Dan Calloway. I do sit on the recreation department, so I did call Mr. Young, and Mr. Young said that piece of property with that little skating, it's been there. And the children, they're there. And I have been over there where they had the skateboards, the motor things, and the kids skating. And it never just dawned on me that this was something that was there, the big, the asphalt. And so he said he would rather have the kids playing there in Dan Calloway and skating than out in the street skating. So it's been there for a while. We just haven't paid attention because we don't live over there. But I have been there and I've seen the kids skate. So that's what happened. That I guess we weren't notified because we don't have kids that skate. So that I wish I could have stopped and called Mr. Gallagher and told him, but that's what happened with the skating rink.
Yeah, Ms. Shepherd, they normally have, they used to have parties, the skate parties for the kids there, and I could hear the music from where I live at. They just stopped having the parties.
He said they're going to start it back up.
Okay.
So that's in the future. And Jazz After Dark, we're just now meeting, so we're getting to know one another. But I did bring it up about the skating. And if we want to know anything about Park and Rec, Mr. Young is the ideal man to go to and talk to. He could put you on the right track because I called him that night. And then another thing that happened, we were talking about Lindsay Davis and the parking. We're getting 6 more parking spaces. Well, they're building a house right there. And then the other day I got a call because they were ticketing the cars at Lindsay Davis. So I called the major And he said that he was told and that the tickets that the seniors had, if you have one, I'm talking to Channel 18, take the ticket and give it to Mr. Young and they will void it out. They don't know who gave the order because it's no parking at Lindsay Davis. And like tomorrow, we're having a party. If you want to come and see, all the spaces are taken up. The seniors come out and they party, hardy, and there's no places to park. So if you want to come and see the parking, tomorrow will be the ideal time to come and see the seniors at Lindsay Davis come out and have a good time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. It seems like our upping planning and zoning board meeting, our next one will be April 10th, 2025. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And my next thing is to someone a motion for adjournment.
At 8:42 PM, I motion to adjourn.
5,000.